I made a mistake when buying Resonator strings a couple of months ago. It was completely my fault, and I kind of feel a little bit stupid about it, but I thought, hey, why not share this with BGI? So a little bit later in the video, you're going to find out what the mistake is, although it might become a little bit obvious before we actually get there. But it taught me a lesson. It taught me to look a little bit deeper, even on the small things, because buying strings are a small thing, but when we attach those small things to a big thing, our guitar, it kind of matters. So I did look a little bit deeper, and I bought 3 more sets. And in this video, I'm going to compare 4 sets, including my mistake set, on this Gretsch Honey Dipper. We're going to do it in open G tuning. Now, 2 of these sets are specifically labeled for resonators, and the other 2 are not. I want to see if that matters, and I want to see which ones sound best. So strap on a pair of headphones, and let's get to it. You ready? Let's start with a string maker that I've been using for decades, D'Addario. These are similar to my trusty EJ17s that I often use on my acoustics, but they're just a little heavier, but they're made of phosphor bronze as well. The price and quality are tough to beat in my opinion, but let's see how they sound. Now let's hear these strings with a few bars of fingerpicking. I'm going to save my thoughts on the sound until the end when I do a back-to-back audio comparison of all the sets. But how did they feel? Well, to me, they feel like home. I've played D'Addario EJ17s for so long that these are basically the same. They're a little bit heavier, just a little bit. And by the way, each set that I'm testing out today is pretty similar in gauge, except for one outlier. We're going to get to that soon. But first, let's have a look at the strings I was really pulling for, but unfortunately, there was a pretty big issue with them. I recently tried a set of Ernie Ball Aluminum Bronze on my acoustic guitar at the recommendation of a commenter on YouTube, and I fell for them immediately. I absolutely love them. They feel great and they sound amazing on that guitar. But there's one weird thing that might keep me from going all in on these with my Honey Dipper. I'm going to share that in just a second, but first, let's test this out with some slide and with some picking. Okay, so these feel amazing to me, just like they do on my acoustic. It's hard for me to describe the feel of something, I guess, but they don't feel as metallic as the phosphor bronze strings like the D'Addarios. They feel different, that's for sure, in a warmer, softer kind of way, and they're easier on the fingers, at least for me. But about that problem I mentioned, the wrap near the ball end of the string wouldn't fit through the bridge hole in my Honey Dipper. So it went up to where the wraps start and got stuck, and I didn't notice it, so I kept tuning, and that put a lot of pressure on the ball end, and eventually that ball flew across the room. So I actually put the John Pearse second string on for this test. So it's 5/6 Ernie Ball, 1/6 John. But I really enjoy these strings, but I can't deal with that problem unless I step down a gauge, which I might do, or widen the hole in the bridge. I don't want to do that, so I'm really gonna have to consider stepping down a gauge if I want to keep the Ernie Ball strings. But this isn't even the biggest mistake that I made. We're gonna get to that in just a second, but first let's have a look at our next set of strings. I've used these John Pearse strings regularly on both of my resonators since I got in the resonator game. There's one simple reason for that. The package actually says they're for round neck resonators. That's what this is. It's a dead match. So I kept buying these over the years, and I've enjoyed them without really thinking too much about it. I mean, the D'Addario, the Ernie Ball, anything else that's out there, they don't say specifically resonator strings. These do, and so does the next step, by the way, but that's a bigger story. Let's hear these John Pearse strings first. These feel a lot like the D'Addario strings, which makes sense. The gauge is very similar and it's the same material, phosphor bronze. Solid set of strings, I really like them, but let's see what happens with this next set. I bought this set of strings, the GHS Americana Resonator strings, for one reason. Well, two, okay. First, I love experimenting with strings. They usually don't cost that much for a set and they can have a big impact on playability and of course sound. And second, I bought them because it says 4 resonators right there on the package, kind of like the John Pearse strings. So I figured these should be able to do the job. But not all resonator strings are for my guitar. This was my big mistake. I should have looked a little bit deeper. Let's listen to the GHS Americanas and then we're going to talk about it. These strings are heavy, at least compared to everything else that I've tried here today, especially the top 3 strings. I really felt it. The guitar was under a lot more tension than usual, which is kind of a tip off here. These resonator strings are meant for a square neck dobro, the kind you see folks playing on their lap with the gigantic tree branch for the neck. The kind where the strings are nowhere near the fretboard, and the kind where open G tuning means high open G tuning, GBD, GBD. That is not what this guitar is for. This is resonator tuned to open G tuning, Spanish tuning, and it's meant for blues, not for that dobro style of playing. And remember that second string issue that I had with the Ernie Ball set? Well, that happened here too, except the string wraps were wedged into the hole enough to hold the tune, so I kind of left it. I didn't feel good about it, but I did it, and I played it just enough to get these 2 snippets for you recorded, but I could tell these strings were way too heavy. It's not the right thing for this guitar, and I was a little nervous about doing some damage, so as soon as I recorded those 2 things, I detuned and took those strings off immediately. But I want to be clear, these strings are probably fine. They sounded kind of cool. They're just not for my guitar any more than a set of bass strings would work on this guitar. This is not GHS's mistake, it was mine. In fact is, if I flip over the package, you can clearly see the tuning, GBD, GBD. My mistake. Lesson learned. Check the gauge and look a little bit beyond what's right in front of you on the package. The GHS strings aren't for this guitar, but it definitely gave it a different sound. It kind of tamed this normally loud and rowdy reso. It sounded subdued to me, and that might work in certain situations, although it's not normally what I'm after. And again, these aren't even supposed to be on here, so moving on. The D'Addario and the John Pearse strings are very similar, both really bright and had that brassy sound to them. Still comfortable to play, nice overall tone, so they're both welcome on this guitar. But what did you think about the Ernie Balls? I have to solve for that bridge hole problem, probably just going to get a lighter set, but I really like the feel and the balanced sound from them. They're warm and smooth versus that brassy sound of phosphor bronze, which is cool in its own right, but I think I'm going to stick with the Ernie Balls for a little while. I want to hear from you though. Did any of these string sets stick out to you? Did any of it make a difference at all? To help you out with that, I'm going to play the clips back to back to back to back and let you really listen. So put on some headphones and take a listen and tell me what you think about each set, or pick your favorite and then let me know which one you like the best in the comments below. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, practice smart and play on.